Hi everyone, my name is Danica Swaggerty, and I am a senior environmental science major here at St. Francis. And today we're going to do a tutorial on how to do a grid system when drawing animals. So, a grid system is a really great way to do drawings of animals or anything really, because it helps with proportions. Now, when you're drawing animals, especially when you're doing identification for field guides or journals, or even just drawing for fun, it's really easy to do this way just because it gets the proportions correct and everything looks the way that it should be, and it's helpful to identify what you're actually drawing. So we're going to need a few things before we get started. And I have a bunch of different drawing utensils here, but if you don't have all these fancy things, that's completely okay. I've just been drawing for a while. So first we're going to start with the paper. Now I like to use tan tone paper for two reasons. One, I use colored pencils and it looks really nice on this paper and it blends really well. Two, when I'm drawing on tan tone paper, I don't have to worry about a background because it's already there and it's not a big blank white space if I were to be drawing on something else. But if you're drawing in a field journal, field guide, that's perfectly fine. You can still use this technique. In that case, you don't really need a background, and that's fine. So next, we're going to be looking at the pencils that we are going to be using. Now you're going to need an assortment of pencils. Now if you don't have an assortment of pencils, that is completely okay. If you're just using a regular number 2 pencil, that's perfectly fine. You just have to know how hard and how light to press on your pencil. Now the first two here are for darker and heavier lines, and these lines will be easier to erase. The second two are for smaller and lighter lines, and these are lines that are going to be there for a while, and if you're drawing in black and white, these are really good for outlines so that you don't lose your image when you're erasing your grid. Lastly, you're going to need a pencil sharpener, an eraser, and of course, your ruler. So to start your gridding process, you're going to want to pick, an animal to draw. Now, when I do my drawings, I do mine off of photographs so that I can use this grid system. And you can go on Google and find an image that you like and use that. I highly recommend using photos that you take yourself just to refrain from, quote unquote, using someone else's work. But I found these on Google. This is a Flameback Woodpecker. And I chose this one just because a friend of mine actually wants me to draw this for them, so I'm using this opportunity to do that for them. But I'm also doing this one because I like a challenge and I am a little bit more advanced in my drawing skills. So I have a colored one here, and this is what I use because I do colored pencil and I do add the color and stuff like that. But I also printed out a black and white one. And printing it out in black and white is a really good way to see shading, seeing how dark you need to make things and stuff like that, so that if you're just drawing in pencil, you can still do that and still add all of this detail that it has in the bird and still know what it is, even without most of the colors. So we're going to focus on this one. And we're going to talk about how I grid up this picture and why I chose the size and the number of squares that I did. So the main point of doing this system is breaking it up into smaller squares. So instead of drawing the whole thing all together, you're just drawing what you see in each square and then building it up, and then you have your image. So when determining how many rows and columns that you want to make, you want to look at your image and see how big or how small it is. So I blew this up, but what's really cool about the grid system is because it is a grid. It doesn't matter how big your image is, how small it is. You can make it whatever size you want onto your paper because of this system. So I did 9 across the bottom and I did 6 this way. I chose this because I liked how much it broke up the image, and it gave me smaller sections to focus on when I'm going to transfer this to my grid on my paper. So a couple ways that you can go about doing this is you can actually number these if that makes it easier, or you can do letters and numbers so you can reference what square you're working with. But what I find the easiest is I crop around the image, and I crop out all of the squares that don't have any of the animal inside, so that I'm only focusing on those squares, and it makes it a little less confusing. So once you have your image gridded up, you are going to start gridding your paper. Now, what I have found to be the easiest way is to find a section of your paper that you want to draw your image. Now this helps with saving time, saving utensils because you're not using your pencil all the time, but it saves you time because you're not gridding up your entire paper, because a lot of this you're going to erase once you get your outline of your animal drawn. So I already have my vertical lines drawn here, and I did this by measuring out each of the sections and putting a little dot right here. If you can't see that, right there. And I did that along each of the lines. Now when I did this, I took my ruler and I made sure that it was lined up right here so that I knew where I started. I guess I should. Like so, on the same line. And then I did every 3/4 of an inch. So I put a dot there, all the way down until I had my 9 rows that I needed. Now the reason why I do this, and I make sure that it's lined up here, is so when I go up to the top and I do the same thing, we have our line lined up, and we're going to do the same thing with each of our dots until we have the same number. So I went ahead and did the vertical ones just so you could see what it looks like, but we're going to do a couple vertical or horizontal lines together. So same concept here. You line it up to the line, you do your dots, you move it over, and you do the same thing. So after you have your dots, you're going to take your ruler and make sure that it's in line with the 2 dots on either side, like so. And you're going to want to use, I'm using my 6B pencil, but if you have a regular pencil, that's just fine. But when you do these lines, you want to go light because you're going to be erasing all of these lines at some point. So when you line up your dots, you're just going to go from one side all the way over, like that. And I like to use this clear ruler just because I can see what I'm doing. I can see through it like this. Make sure that I'm doing the same thing and measuring out, but also kind of eyeballing that I'm doing the right thing here, like so. Now, what's good, another good thing is, especially if you don't have a clear ruler like this, and if it's one that you can't see through, to go away from your lines. So I just made a line here, so I'm going to go down away from it, find my dots, and make my new line. This way I can kind of eyeball to make sure that I'm making perfect squares, and know that my grid won't be messed up and it won't interfere with my drawing. So we're just gonna do these last two here. See, I almost messed up, like so. And that down. Last one. Okay. So now we have our grid. So mine is gonna be, did I forget one? Is actually 6 by 9. Just marked my paper. And this is where the place on the paper that my the bird that I'm drawing is going to be. Now, once you get your grid, if you want to erase these extra lines up here, that's perfectly fine if that's going to mess you up. But if not, you can leave them there and no biggie. So once you have your photo gridded up and your paper, we're going to start drawing. Now, when you start doing the drawing, you want to do very generic outlines. Now, I'm using my B pencil because since I will end up coloring this with colored pencil, the pencil marks will be erased at some point. So this makes it easier for that erasing. But if you're just using a regular number 2 pencil and you want to do your entire drawing in pencil, it's okay to press down a little hard when doing the outline. Now, the best way to go about this is to see all of these as just straight lines. You can see here, like right here, if you can see that there's like a blip because of feathers. There's feathers here, and there's like, you know, it's going out. You can add those in after you get your generic outline going. Now, you can literally start anywhere you want, but I like to start at the face and work this way. The reason why I do it that way is so when I'm right-handed, so when my hand is sitting on the paper, I'm not like my hand isn't resting on something that I've already drawn. So when I rub and go across, I'm not smudging my drawing. So I went ahead and drew a little bit of the outline, but I'm going to show you just a little bit here now. So I finished the beak. I'll show you the image. Did the beak, head, and see how here this is a very like just squared off compared to has like feathers coming out. I'm going to go back and do that detail later. And then generic, here's the feathers, and then going down. So the part that I still have to draw is right here, and right here, and right here. So these 4 squares. So I'm going to continue on. I'm going to continue on here and just draw what I see in the square. So there's that one. And this is gonna drop down. And then you don't have to be like completely perfect. I'll probably go in and fix that because this triangle here is bigger than what I made over here. But that's okay. We're not looking for perfection. This is your drawing. And then we're gonna go out. And same thing here. I'm gonna make this kind of a generic like sideways mark. Come back in, go down. Now I did this little split just because this is a very harsh line and I can follow that in this generic outline. And then that's about here, like so. And then the back tail comes in. And then finally, right there. Okay. So we have that. Now, looks pretty good. So all you have to do is just follow the squares and do your outline. And then you can go back and add detail. So when adding detail, especially if you're just doing this in pencil, you can do the exact same thing and go around like different sections. So you'd want to mark where the wing was. You want to mark, I actually already did the leg. You want to mark where the leg comes in to the body. You want to mark where these like lines are on the eye, those kind of things, the break here in the color. And you can go in and do that, which I will do that because I want to know where to start coloring when I fill this in. But if you're just doing it in black and white, that's a really good idea to do, and break up the sections and then add the shading, which you can use with the black and white picture. So as I mentioned before, breaking up the certain sections of your image, like the wing and the different colors, I went ahead and did that because I'm going to do it anyways for the coloring portion, but I just want to show you what that would look like so you had an idea. So here I marked this where the red is. This is where like the black and white stripes would come through. This whole section is white, and then you have, you know, your black and colored here, as well as the wing and different sections of the back. So this is what that would look like when you cut it up. And then another thing I wanted to show you was the feet. So the particular reference photo that I picked, it's pretty difficult to see what the whole entire foot looks like. So I went and looked up different photos of different positions of the woodpecker so that I could get a good idea of what their feet look like, so it could be as realistic as I want it to be. So you can reference multiple pictures. I just wanted to point that out. You don't need to only stick to one photo. So that helps with your whole drawing, and it makes the image come together. Last thing I wanted to show you guys is if you want to do colored pencil, it's super easy, and it's not as, this is a difficult bird to draw, but if you're doing other ones, it's pretty easy, especially if you're using this grid system and it's the same exact thing. You're just drawing what you see, you know, in each square. But I just want to show you a little thing that I'm working on and the progress that I've made with my color pencil drawing. So this is what I have so far. It's been very difficult, but it's been fun. It's been a good challenge, and you know, I really love this. So hope y'all enjoy my drawing, and I hope this tutorial helped you out a bit, and I hope you get some more confidence in your drawing.